I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Gaston Vizian.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Scott. Tune in to
Donttap
Donttap podcast.
The UFC 304 Donttap podcast. We did promise you we'd always get a pay-per-view. Eventually the schedule will be consistent. I'm not making promises for every week. It's just not something that's in the cards with how things are moving right now. But I promise you things will get very elevated as things start to grow. So as far as the Donttap podcast, there'll always be reels out. Billy's always putting picks out. I'm always putting picks out. That's always going to be there. But let's just dig into this UFC 304 card. Man, I have some spots that I never thought I would see. I started digging in, looking on one side of the fights, and then you end up on the other. I sort of love those ones. You either feel really good about how smart you are, or you're really, really stupid by the end of it because you're like, I was on the right side initially. But I have some guys that I have faded so hard, where I've said some bad shit on this podcast about, that I'm actually backing pretty heavily in these matchups. So yeah, man, I think we're going to dig into this one. UFC 304. Let's fucking go. Billy, take it away with your first spot.
Yeah, shouts to everybody that's watching this on the replay. Shouts to the Donttap podcast. Big UFC card. I think the first thing to note for this card is that the time difference in this one. For us, we're not going to face any accommodations, but overseas-wise, I think that they're fighting at 5 a.m. their time. So definitely a note for fighters that are maybe hometown fighters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. First spot that we're going to look at here is Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosby here. This seems like a setup fight for Sam Patterson. He's definitely his fight to lose here. I was shocked that Kiefer Crosby even got signed to the UFC in the first place after going 4-3 in Bellator and ending his Bellator tenure on back-to-back losing streaks. And then he had two regional scene setup fights. I mean, we faded him on the Bellator couple fights on his way out of the door, and then we faded him in the Kevin Doucette fight. That fight, he got submitted in the first round. I feel like this is an example of like the right step up in competition, and Sam Patterson's usually a finisher. 10 out of 11 of his finishes are inside the distance. While it's against a lower level of competition, it's nice to see the finishing ability. I feel like to be successful at the UFC level, you only have to be well-rounded, but you have to also have like a special skill. And I feel like for Sam Patterson, that's definitely the submission ability. Crosby's been finishing the first round in 3 out of his 4 losses. Waiting on the Shauna Bannon line, but that's probably going to be my early prelim 2-piece there. What I would say the pay for the pay-per-view is the Sam Patterson Shauna Bannon 2-leg parlay. We'll talk about the Shauna Bannon fight, but we're waiting on the line. I mean, it's the setup of setup fights. Do I think that she's that good? No, not really, but she's probably going to win that fight.
It's a setup fight, man. She's fighting social media. We shouldn't downplay that too much because she has been in some fights, but I mean, it's just not. She's going to get beat down pretty bad. That line's going to be wide as fuck. It's going to be Bellator. Is it already out, you said?
No, it's not out yet because she got that opponent change. She's fighting.
Yeah, so I'm going to just, as you're doing that, I'm going to just dig in with you on the Sam Patterson. That's actually one of my plays of the week. I was trying to look for a way to see him lose because that is a guy that instantly when I see him on a card, I know he can be hittable at times when somebody can bring the power. But Crosby, he's gonna be doing a lot of swinging and missing, and then grabbing onto some hips. And although he may take Patterson down, I think that where his reach is going to serve him well in this fight is in his leverage with his limbs. He's able to get to your back, reverse positions, even if you have a little bit of a better technique or whatever else. He's still able to work it because he has that leverage. So I really like him in this spot. We have 6 of his wins coming via submission. And if you look at Crosby, he's been submitted, I think, +5 times in his career. So for me, it just seems like almost an auto bet in this one. Although the line, I think, is a little bit wide still at this point with Patterson, although I really see an avenue pretty heavily. At -350, I do like the sub, and that's going to be one of my plays of the week. On the Darce podcast, they sort of pulled me in to see what my play of the week was going to be, and I did not see myself, going to the bank for Patterson, but I just see such a distinct the matchup's just going to be, you're going to see Crosby, a shorter guy, trying to constantly close distance. As he's closing distance, he's probably going to get peppered up. He may land a big one, and if he lands one to knock him out, then it is what it is. I'll eat my words, but I just don't see it. I think he's going to swing and miss. I think he's going to be on the hips, maybe get his neck taken, and just see Patterson maybe even reverse positions. Although Kiefer Crosby does shoot a lot of takedowns, I think that's going to work against him in this one quite drastically. So I like the sub. We'll see what the line is when it comes out. But minus 350 money line. I mean, I may even parlay him in something early as well too, and I may even sort of like the idea of that early parlay. I love prelim parlays that start your night off right. So I may, we just put out that Bannon and Patterson line when it comes up, or when the Bannon line comes up. So I like
I'm
it.
interested to see where the submission and decision line comes in at. I feel like those lines I've been making good money on of like the last month, like the Santos one, the Santos Maria Agapova fight. I remember she was like a minus like 350 and her submission and decision line was minus 185. It's a little bit chalky, but like when you're talking about in terms of like people that you think are going to win the fight, if you can do the right amount of research and kind of nail the path to victory and hit the double method there, I feel like it's a way to kind of eliminate the juice. Because I feel like the main goal sometimes of when you're, depending on what type of bettor you are, like if you're just betting on fights and like you're chilling with your girlfriend on Saturday night, then let it so be it. You let the cards deck where they may. But if you're watching the card itself, I mean, how do you not just bet fight by fight by fight? Like you don't have to throw a fucking shitload of money down, but like, hey, you're watching the fight. You think it's going to go one way. Sometimes you get a better feel for these fights when you're watching it live.
My betting might be the way to do it. You're definitely right, because this is a sketchy card, man. There's multiple, much like the one on last weekend. It's definitely a little bit sketchy. So yeah, the one thing with Patterson too, so it's actually, or sorry, with Crosby, it's not +5 submission losses. He's had only 2 submission losses, but they're recent. Like 2 of his most recent losses are by submission. So maybe at this level, his wrestling approach is just not working. And when you go up against guys who all are higher level at jiu-jitsu,
well, the red flag for me is like you kind of saw it in his Bellator career. He wasn't fighting that bad. He was 4-2. They're putting him on those Euro Series cards and stuff like that. And then there was just like a sharp decline. Like you would think that the dude would be like in his 40s, like the way that he's been getting finished in his last couple of fights. But like he's really not that old. The red flag is the first round finishes, or 3 out of 4 of his losses. So like it's either like he goes in there and he knows he's gonna have a night, or he just knows it's not his night. He's trying to get the fuck up on out of there and get paid. And I feel like Sam Patterson's a guy that the UFC wants to push. Does he have the ability and the talent to really reach the potential level that the promotion wants him to reach? I mean, that's an argument for another day and scenario. But for next Saturday's purposes, I'm betting on the dude.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. I just think that another thing too is, and it's a good point that I was looking at with Verna Jandiroba. She actually is pretty calculated with her takedown. She doesn't overwork and waste energy. So there's wrestlers that are able to do that, and people are like, oh, they may gas if they wrestle. But if they have good technique, they won't gas when they wrestle. They're going to take the person down. Other people that are working power and strength versus technique on the cage and everything else, that's what they're going to gas. That's where they get their neck taken. That's where we cash. So
that should be all cool and all that, but I would say the 2 differences is the cages. This one's going to be in a big cage. That main event is going to be in the Apex, and I don't know. I feel like sometimes with the wrestle grappling type of people, and once they start getting punched in the face a little bit, and you have to, it is what it is. You got the crooked eye. You start getting punched in the face a little bit. I mean, Lemos has been there. I mean, I like Lemos in that main event.
Yeah, I know. So we're actually pre-recording this before the Jandiroba fight. I'm not going to get into that one, but the numbers don't tell me anything about Lemos except maybe a KO that could happen. Big moments ain't happening. Shit getting taken down. She's getting stuff. But we'll move into the UFC 304. I want you to bring your next pick to the table. I got a couple fades of a couple Brits because I just see it happening. But you take it away.
Yeah. This one it's just one of those system type plays for me. I just got to go down with the ship. Let it be so. Oban Elliott here. I think he's going to be able to secure his first UFC win. That is legit, I feel like. He got that first win in his last fight, but he's put together a nice little streak here. 6-fight win streak coming into this fight. Elliott's game is based basically off of this pressure, throwing volume, and getting takedowns. And I feel like the jury still be out on Preston Parsons, in my opinion. Like, yeah, he's looked impressive. Like, the wins look impressive on paper, but when you watch him fight, as the casuals would say, like, he's just a crotch sniffer. Like, he's just looking to grapple. And if his grapple isn't able to work, he just shows he can kind of wilt under pressure. And while he has the experience advantage, and that's what makes him the betting odds favorite, I like Elliott as the hometown fighter here at underdog odds. He's going to be my underdog in the night here.
I this was one I was actually looking at on the Darce podcast. They were going to have me as a special guest this week, and that was the dog I was actually sort of looking at. I'm like, I maybe should talk to you because they didn't really sort of throw too much shine towards Elliott, but I think he has an avenue, man. I think for him on the feet, he starts landing. This line could look a little bit wider, and I'm sort of with it with you on that one. Not a crazy take because I didn't dig too much more into it. I didn't get into tape part on this one. It was more just like remembering back to their last fights. But yeah, that was one I was starting to look at. So it's something I'll probably still be looking at going into the week.
Line.
Sorry?
I was shocked by the betting odds line.
Oh, it's plus 130 right now, yeah?
Plus 140 at ESPN.
There you go.
Yeah, like I was shocked by the betting. And like it's kind of like one of those type of fights, like you were talking about in the beginning of the show. Like, oh yeah, you research and then you be like, yeah, I like the pick, and then you see the betting odds, you're like, damn, dude, plus 140. I mean, shit, I might have to get in.
Like with it, it's like, can anybody honestly definitively say they know what's going to happen in that fight? Honestly, because we know so much about these guys at this level under the big lights. No, we don't. So what are you going to go with when you have something that's plus 140ish, plus 150ish or higher? I mean, it makes sense to me. Dog or pass makes sense. I'm going to come in with a little bit of a dog, just a slight dog, because he's going to hit somebody harder than he's never ever been hit. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to pull the trigger on Manal Cop.
I love it.
I have to, man. I sort of and just let me sort of pull this up.
I'm glad you're pulling this up, man. Shout outs to Cal.
I'm digging in on this one, man. Shout outs to
This is the levels fight. This is the levels check fight of the week for Cal.
Well, it's levels, and it's just like, okay, Makhachev has found himself in trouble multiple times. Even with Malcolm Gordon on the ground, Malcolm Gordon was able to sort of, we talked about it, he was able to grapple him and do some things. He's been touched up. He's had his leg almost broken. He's had so many moments in there, more so on the grappling side of things. So I don't know. I just see with Manal Cop, he hits so goddamn hard, and he actually is a pretty solid setup striker. So for him, he's setting up his shots, coming in on the southpaw. He can switch stances on him as well too. And I just see the volume. It's like if it stays on the feet for any time, Manal Cop not only hits hard, but his volume actually has now gone up. Where people used to criticize him, he's now landing about 5, and that's a nice number for a high impact volume, like mid volume striker. So I'm with that right there. The only thing is takedown defense, 59%. It's not too bad. I don't think Makhachev, although he's able to get people down and he can dominate some of the, say, worst grapplers, I think that Manal Cop will still be strong enough in there to be able to get back to his feet at times and land big. So I think if it goes to decision, which I think it might actually go to decision, I think Cop wins by bigger moments on the feet with hardly any volume from Makhachev, with barely any sub-attacks, and just trying to take him down and control him on the ground. I don't think he's going to suplex him or drop him or do a belly to back or anything against Manal Cop. That's how he gets big moments too, with the slams that really do fuck all. Sorry, I'm not hating on Makhachev, so maybe you want to fade me on this because I'm on this one, but I just don't see the hype is not, like if he's in a wrestling tournament, fuck yeah, his hype's right there. He's really solid. But like, it's not all come together for me. Not at this level, and they're going to keep pushing him higher, and he's going to get exposed. And I think now is the time. I've been waiting. This is the moment. Manal Cop plus 105, and I'll be looking at that KO prop because I like it late. I like Makhachev to get a little bit gassy. You know, he can go full 3, but a little bit gassy, and then he just gets caught by a big shot, and I'm sort of with it. But we'll go plus 105, and I'll take Manal Cop at plus money and maybe just leave it there.
So this is like the perfect scenario of like, what side of the narrative are you on? And this is kind of a side of the narrative I can kind of get behind, because it feels like Manal Cop is walking in here on like his boogeyman status, and he says, I want a title shot. And whatever the fuck I got to do to get a title shot, I'll do it. And the boys are all like, we hear you, we feel you. When you're inside the cage, yeah, you can do it, but it's the making weight, it's the showing up, or how can we put you on these big pay-per-views and main events if you're not consistently making weight? I mean, betting odds wise, the biggest liability on the books this year was Manal Cape winning the flyweight championship. And with him missing weight for those fights, the books kind of got away with one. But, you know, all the casuals are smacking the Manal Cop line. But this is just one of those fights where I feel like Manal Cop's been there, done that. He's lost before. He's felt the highs of highs and rise, and he's felt the lows of lows. He's fought Alexander Pantoja in his UFC debut. He's seen what it's like to fight at that level. I mean, if you tell me who's the best flyweight in that division, I got to go with Manal Cop right now. It's just him showing up on fight night on weight, which is a problem. But I think that's going to be the biggest problem for Mikhaev here, though. I don't think Mikhaev is going to have that. So a lot of Mikhaev's grappling is based off of predicate of him having a strength advantage over his opponent. But when he didn't have that strength advantage over Alex Perez and he was forced to use straight technique versus technique, I mean, the American folk style wasn't that bad of a showing. And if you're granted it wasn't the best of Mikhaev's abilities. I guess he was hurt that night or whatever. I remember he made some type of excuse for it. He was like sick coming into the fight. But regardless, bro, I just feel like Manel Cap has too many avenues of winning this fight. I think he's going to be the stronger guy in the grappling exchanges, where if he gets taken down, he's going to get back up, and the striking volume is just going to be there. I mean, I just gotta go with it, man. This is just one.
Let me make a correction too. I said 59%. That was the strike differential, his defense, his striking defense. So his actual takedown defense is 77%, and it's partly because of what you're saying and what I was saying earlier, the strength. And I think that's going to be a problem for Mikhaev.
Yeah, he looks like a bantamweight, but he fights at flyweight, and that's why you can't make weight. As long as this is one where like I don't even care about
this is a moment for him.
I don't care about the value of like getting the plus money tag or if it goes to a favorite regardless. The only thing I really want to see for this fight is I just got to make sure the motherfucker makes weight. I'm not trying to there's too many times with Mikhaev where like you see him on the scales and like you just be like, yeah, that fight's going to be off this weekend. Like it happened so many times. So it's like I just got to wait for you know, we'll know as the week goes on, but it's definitely one I've circled as a probably will be betting on my card. But the biggest thing is I don't care. The value is within him making weight. The value is not within the line, in my opinion.
Manal Cop, money line plus 105. Manal Cop KO if the motherfucker makes weight. Next pick on the card. What is your final spot of the day?
Yeah, this is just one where call me a homer, call me what it is. You just got to do what you got to do. And sometimes I guess I got to put up my guy while I'm talking about this. Shouts to Sugar Sean. We're going to find the ceiling here of where Paddy Pimblett is fighting Bobby Green, a.k.a. Bobby King.
We're on the same fights today.
He's going to have be the best version of himself to pull out this win because I think the time off was good, though. The activity kind of caught up to Paddy a little bit where he wasn't fighting at 100% in his last couple of fights, and it kind of showed in the performances. But the lead up to this fight is definitely going to be the most entertaining of the week for the press conferences. Bobby Green's been able to upgrade his status over the last couple of years to the casual fans, but the OGs know that he's been in this game for years. Very well-rounded striking, Philly shell boxing type style, and he's a BJJ black belt, hence why he's the betting odds favor here in this one. But I like the overs, and I like Paddy winning by decision. It's just going to be one of those ones where Bobby's had a historic career of losing on the judges' scorecards. I think it's going to be a close fight. It might be a popular pick, but I think Paddy's going to pull this out at close to even odds. I just got to play it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. We're head-to-head on this one. I love it to finish off the show because I'm going all in I don't want to call him king, but I can't call another man king. Not even if he was born, if his mom gave him the name, I'll call that man king. But Bobby Green is, I don't know, man. I just think for me, at what he's about 77% takedown defense. Make sure I'm all over my numbers this week, so let's make sure my numbers are actually correct. 74% takedown defense, and the striking differential, they both actually have a pretty decent striking differential. We got Bobby, at 6.45 and that landed per minute, and strikes absorbed 3.75. We got Paddy Pimblett with 5.13 and strikes absorbed 3.70. There's one difference in how those strikes are absorbed. Paddy Pimblett holds his head up high. This is going to be a matchup thing for me. I don't think Paddy Pimblett, although he is a strong grappler, he has enough grappling that he's going to show at Bobby Green anything he hasn't seen yet. I think Bobby Green's going to be able to get back to his feet. I think most of this fight is going to be contested on the feet. And while Paddy does have power in his hands, that is going to be the difference. If Bobby does get touched, getting a little bit too overconfident, that's the only way I think he loses this one. I think Bobby is going to out-volume him and land bigger shots because he's been throwing a lot more into his punches more recently. I get the one thing that's sort of fading me and going against me in the narrative here. Where are we? We're in the UK. Paddy Pimblett goes to the scorecards. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot about him sort of stealing that fight from Jared Gordon. And I think that, honestly, if you want to talk about judges that just go off of stupid shit in their head, that could be something where they'd be like, well, we probably shouldn't give Paddy this one again. If you want to go on narrative shit, right? But here's my thing. I know he's at home court and whatever else. But all I'm saying is, I think Bobby Green is going to go and light him the fuck up. This is the other moment I've been waiting for. When can I fade Paddy Pimblett? When can I fade Makayev? Both guys, I think, are overhyped. Paddy gets hit in the head, and although his differential looks decent, every time he gets hit, it looks really bad. And if Bobby even gets a sniff of him even backing up from a shot, he's going to light him up like a motherfucking Christmas tree. That's happening 100%. So Paddy better be different in the striking. That's all I'm saying. If Paddy can do different striking and mixes in the grappling a lot, this could be really greasy. And I see what you're saying with the decision for Paddy. But for me, I think this is on the feet, and we have a way better boxer in Bobby Green. Fiziev, that's all I got to say. That Fiziev fight.
Gary versus MVP fight from a couple weeks ago.
No, it's not.
I'm saying in styles of
not the same, man. Look, Michael Venom Page can't bring his karate into anything else. He can't tie it together with the wrestling. Go ahead.
There's one problem with Bobby Green doing that Philly shell style shit. He's gonna end up giving up his back too much, and that's gonna be the ultimate difference in this fight.
And that is the sound clip if there's a rear naked choke. If there's a rear naked choke, we're coming back to that one, and I'm clipping the shit out of that because you're going to be legendary for the back take.
I'm just saying, when you're standing on your feet and you're fighting like this and you're fighting against a grappler, you're basically like giving a straight avenue to your back every time. And if there's one thing that Paddy Pimblett's good at, it's getting towards the back.
Like he shows good fight IQ in the sense that when he does get tagged, he goes to his grappling or goes to his wrestling. So he does go to what makes sense for him where he can get an advantage. But like the point is, he gets tagged first. And Bobby also has been finishing people. And I just think that Paddy's chin, it's crackable on so many levels, man. Like if you took tape and brought that to a boxing gym and said, hey, so what's this guy doing wrong? And I get that it's MMA, but it's just really bad, dude. His hands are up so high. All he's got is a fucking Scouser's chance outside the bar at 3 a.m. outside eating fish and chips and shit. Like
that's a part of the skit, though, Cal. Scousers, we don't get knocked up. It's a part of the skit.
Maybe I'm getting my blood too into it, or maybe I'm actually too invested into it mentally because I want to see these guys finally get faded. Because I just don't think that they are at that level. And if you see me backing Bobby Green, who I've also backed and also, but I don't like how he pushes some shit and how he talks sometimes. It's a little bit stupid. His King Green shit I think.
I'm telling you, man, don't go down. You're gonna be one of those guys. MMA Twitter is gonna be or MMA X as I call it, is gonna be all over it. They're gonna say this is a levels fight. Bobby Green. This is the clip that you put up on Instagram of the dude at the computer saying, "Look at this fucking Scouser."
Bobby King Green out volumes with fucking significant strikes and fucking dummies up. That little Scouser head bobbles it around like a milk jug for 3 rounds. We call it a day.
Bobby Green cares about his paychecks, and he's going to get paid very handsomely to lose a decision here.
It should be interesting. We both went in pretty good on this one, cutting each other off. It's fucking excellent.
I love
So
it.
whoever's on one side, we'll figure it out. But let's fade the English. I'm Scottish. Maybe I shouldn't be allowed to bet on this card because we want to fade the English.
I got a couple questions for you, though.
Yes, sir. The main event?
I mean, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't put a lot of money down on a main event.
I'm leaving it alone, but I think it's a Leon going to really like what he did with Kamaru with the takedown defense and getting to the hands and everything else and just breaking those takedowns. I just think on the feet he's going to be. It could actually be a pretty boring fight to watch. It probably is going to be. I don't want to really have any part of it actually because paint dry. I think that's what it's going to be.
What's your opinion on that Arnold Allen Giga Chikadze fight? I kind of like Giga Chikadze a little bit there.
I mean, Slick was talking about Giga as well too. I think Allen's going to be able to at least mix in the wrestling in a sense that with the striking enough, and he does let guys stay at distance, which is the only thing I'm a little bit worried about that the guys are talking about. But I think he's going to have to mix it up enough with a little bit of wrestling shoots to make it interesting for Giga. And I think that he's a well-rounded set, but I don't know, man. The more I've thought I was on the Allen side of that, a lot of other guys have talked one way about Giga, and he does present such power from that southpaw stance with that left kick. It's a problem. So for me, it's more of a stay off because I've started on one side of it. Now I'm questioning myself, so I'm just staying away from it altogether.
I don't blame you. And then what about the Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall fight?
I mean, they're heavyweights, right? And I mean, before the injury, Aspinall wasn't, necessarily. I know it was really early, but he wasn't looking that, dominant right away out of the gate. So I don't know. At heavyweights, the wider the line gets, it's like, well, although I think Aspinall has him everywhere as far as the grappling goes, if it goes to the ground, I think he's going to be able to get back to the feet if he wants to, or even, get even a reverse situation and get him taken down and get on top. On the feet, he's just striking. He's just fast and powerful. But Blades is no joke, man. His striking's come along as well too. And when they're heavyweights, man, one touch and you're out. So if the line gets really wide, just out of being right to the MMA gods, I gotta at least sprinkle a little bit.
Shouts to the loyal listeners. If you guys have listened this deep into the podcast, this will be a Don't Tap podcast exclusive. Cal said in the beginning of the videos, we'll always have the pay-per-views, but we'll give you guys something to hold on for a couple of weeks if we don't get to this card. Sam Patterson and Umar Nurmagomedov 2-leg parlay there of -132. Umar Nurmagomedov fights the weekend after the UFC event. I think it's the first card of August. So a little 2-leg parlay. Put that that's what we'll call a savings play. Sometimes you just want
a savings play, little stretch parlay, little save it for next week. No, I don't mind that one. Pick your ball up and wait for next week as well too. Some of those parlays make complete sense because you find one spot that you really feel so solid about, and it usually claps, and then you always feel that way out. But at least one spot on each card. Put it together a couple of weeks, and eventually it pays off for you, right? So not a bad way to approach it. Bobby Green beats up Paddy Pimblett. We got Sam Patterson subbing Kiefer Crosby, and Manal Kape potentially sending Mokaev to the Shadow Realm, or at least dumbing him up enough to win a decision. That's on my end. Of course, I think you're going for the Scouser, yeah?
Yeah, we're going for the Scouser to win via decision. Bobby Green's fucking whole entire career before the last 2 years were just him losing via split decision and all these fucking fights where he's like, what the fuck, man? I can just see that shit happening again. Oban Elliott.
This is Scouser's head just getting bobbled around. That's what that is.
Elliott by decision over Preston Parsons going over the pond there. And
don't mind that one.
I like Sam Patterson by submission or decision / via. We're going to parlay him and Shauna Bonham when that line comes out.
I like that. That'll be the parlay, I think, for the podcast. And then lastly, just to give a main event pick, I think Leon Edwards wins a decision. But I'll leave it there. I'm not sticking, I'm not touching any line on it, but I think Leon wins the decision.
I think the value is on Bilal. Remember the name, but
I'm not doing it. Do you
I
think if
don't
it goes
wanna
to
bet
decision
it.
and it's a boring fight, they're going to give it to Bilal? Not a
I
chance.
bet it. I bet it the first time, and that was the eye poke bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
don't
all right,
know.
brother. I think we've dug into the spots. Donttap podcast. We got some good spots. We even got some contested spots. So I like that. Paddy Pimblett gets knocked out by Bobby Green. No, I'm joking. We'll see. We'll see. Cheers.
Tune in tight, don't you miss that podcast flow. Knowledge in the playback. Don't tap that. Keep your real facts. Catching vibes East Coast with the boom bap.